In a narrow room of a dusty hospital in southern Bolivia, a body lies stiff on a concrete sink. The tangled beard, the open eyes, and the bullet-ridden torso give him an almost spectral presence before the soldiers, doctors, and journalists crowding in to see him. That corpse belongs to Ernesto Che Guevara, the most famous guerrilla of his time, now turned into a war trophy. From his clandestine arrival in Bolivia to that improvised morgue, there stretches a path of miscalculations, betrayals, exhaustion, and relentless pursuit that sealed the downfall of the man who once dreamed of igniting a continental revolution and who ended up becoming a legend.
Because there was such an enormous crowd outside, they decided they'd pick the body up and let it sit it up in front of the audience. And so the Che was like this.
November 1966. A balding man with a trimmed mustache, thick glasses, and an unremarkable appearance steps off a flight from Sao Paulo at El Alto Airport. His documents say his name is Ramon Benitez. On other papers, he appears as Alfredo Mena. But in truth, he is Ernesto Che Guevara, almost in disguise, stripped of his familiar image, searching for a new beginning. His movements in La Paz are quick, nearly furtive. Brief transfers, temporary lodgings, and finally a departure towards southeastern Bolivia to the remote region of Nyancahuazu. There, a handful of Cubans wait, along with a few Bolivians committed to revolution and a landscape utterly different from what the guerrilla warfare manuals had promised. Nyancahuazu is dry, broken terrain with thorny shrubs and intermittent streams. The tropical jungle Che had imagined simply does not exist. The initial camp rises with difficulty. Log huts, a precarious kitchen, improvised storage. The idea is that this base will be only the first step in a continental wave. Train Bolivians, recruit veterans from the local Communist Party, and create a second Sierra. But cracks appear almost immediately. The prior study of the terrain was minimal. Routes are long and exposed. The indigenous population, distrustful and isolated, has no reason to sympathize with bearded foreigners. Even so, Che presses forward, convinced that revolution does not wait for ideal conditions. That iron will, however, will also become the source of critical mistakes that ultimately make his mission impossible.
Y ver a este hombre que era una imagen totalmente diferente de la que yo recordaba, una persona que estaba prácticamente parecía un pordiosero, las ropas raídas, sucio, el pelo mugriento, ni siquiera tenía botas, un par de cueros amarrados en los pies.
To understand why a minister of state ends up hiding behind a false name in Bolivia, we must go back to the years of the Cuban triumph. In the early 1960s, Che is the clearest face of the revolution. Victorious commander, president of the central bank, minister of industry, and traveling ambassador. His speeches in Africa and Asia turn him into a symbol of internationalism. But that same fervor makes him a political problem. Che rejects agreements, criticizes alliances, and denounces half measures. In Algiers in 1965, he delivers a speech that detonates like a bomb. He accuses the USSR of behaving like just another power, exploiting socialist countries as capitalists would. In the middle of the Cold War, that stance unsettles Fidel Castro, who depends on Moscow to sustain Cuba. The tension becomes unsustainable upon Che's return.
Fidel
and the others met him when he returned from Algiers.
de donde se lo llevaron directamente para una conversación que duró
They
40
holed
horas.
up for talks that lasted almost 40 hours.
De ahí salió la decisión, por decirlo de una
After
forma,
this meeting, Che decided to give up his official duties, to release Cuba from any responsibility.
renunciar a todo para salvar a Cuba de cualquier responsabilidad.
But today we know that Che Guevara was forced to abandon everything.
Fue obligado a renunciar a todo.
Che writes letters, resigns from his posts, and publicly disappears to follow his own path. It is the birth of his first death, the death of the official, the state icon. What remains is the clandestine conspirator, the guerrilla seeking to open new fronts while cutting the political ties that once protected him. Bolivia will be his most ambitious gamble and his most tragic. By early 1967, the Bolivian plan begins to fracture. The Partido Comunista Boliviano, a key piece of the project, refuses to accept a foreigner leading the armed struggle. Its Secretary General, Mario Monge, visits the camp, argues with Che, and leaves outraged. That break is decisive. Without a local political network, the guerrilla becomes isolated. Peasants watch them with suspicion. Many do not even speak Spanish, but Quechua or Guarani, and do not understand the rhetoric of liberation.
Mira, el Che definitivamente fue enviado a Bolivia para que lo mataran. El Che era pro-chino y Cuba dependía 100% de la Unión.
Pro-maoísta, exacto.
O sea, cuando va a África, todo el armamento se lo manda a la China comunista y fracasa. A Bolivia le mandan con el transmisor roto. El 31 de diciembre del 66 se reúne con Mario Monge, líder del Partido Comunista Boliviano, quien había estado con Fidel hacía 2 meses, y le retira todo el apoyo del Partido Comunista.
Problems escalate when deserters and prisoners reveal routes, hideouts, and names. The CIA intercepts reports. It knows Che is in Bolivia. Soon, American advisors arrive, along with the training of a special ranger unit dedicated exclusively to hunting the guerrillas. Washington has no intention of repeating Cuba. This time, the revolution must be crushed before it grows. Even in that grim landscape, the column experiences flashes of success. In March, they defeat a Bolivian company in a flawless ambush. But victory is short-lived. As the year advances, heavy blows follow, irreparable losses, clashes at Vado del Yeso and Caracara, and a slow erosion that turns every day into a forced retreat. The encirclement tightens, almost without them fully realizing it. By mid-1967, the guerrillas sink into physical exhaustion. Food is scarce. Sometimes days pass with little more than dry corn or a hunted animal. Water becomes a treasure rationed by drops. Boots fall apart, feet fill with wounds, clothes turn to rags. On that relentless march, Che's asthma becomes constant torture. Night attacks, wheezing in his chest, forced halts to recover breath. Meanwhile, sinister rumors spread through nearby villages. Guerrillas as killers, cruel foreigners. Terrified peasants prefer to report them rather than risk retaliation. Che, who had dreamed of an alliance with the peasantry, writes in his diary with bitterness, "The peasant masses betray us." He could abandon the mission. He could attempt to escape toward Peru or Brazil. But he does not. He refuses to leave his men behind. He refuses to bear the shadow of retreat. The march continues, even as every kilometer feels like another chapter in a tragedy shaped by the enemy. September is the month everything collapses. Of the more than 40 original guerrillas, barely a dozen remain. Some limp, others suffer severe infections. Several no longer believe in victory. The Bolivian armed forces, reinforced and trained, deploy a more efficient strategy. Closing routes, guarding ravines, cross-checking peasant testimony, mapping and shrinking the enemy's space. For the first time, the Bolivian army functions as a coordinated machine, and that is enough to suffocate a small group. Still, the guerrillas attempt desperate moves. They briefly take hamlets like Alto Seco to obtain food, distribute money, and explain their cause. But once they leave, residents rush to inform the nearest garrison. The sense of encirclement becomes total. Che notes the emotional climate. Some of his men cry, others harden. He himself, despite exhaustion and asthma, maintains a strange calm. He knows the exit narrows, but he also knows he cannot surrender. October 8th, 1967, dawns silently in the Quebrada del Euro, a narrow ravine of red earth and dry brush. The column rests, unaware of what is coming, but a peasant searching for cattle sees them and runs to report. That triggers the movement of Bolivian rangers who deploy in several platoons and advance. By mid-morning, the first shots shatter the calm. 2 Bolivian soldiers die. The guerrillas try to respond, but ammunition runs out quickly. Che's machine gun jams and never fires. During the attempted escape, a bullet tears through his calf. Willie, a Bolivian miner who joined the column, helps him climb a steep slope. Every meter is agony. Finally, they are cornered. Soldiers surround them, weapons raised, shouting. Che surrenders with words that will echo through history. "Don't shoot, I am Che Guevara." The myth becomes a prisoner.
That's when the soldiers called me in. I must have been 10 or 12 meters away. They told me they'd taken some prisoners. I went up and was able to identify one of them as Ernesto Che Guevara.
The transfer to La Higuera is brief and harsh. He is carried on a mule in pain, his leg wrapped in an improvised bandage. The village schoolhouse, adobe walls, thatched roof, becomes his cell. There, his hands and feet are bound. He is left on a bench, surrounded by the bodies of his fallen comrades. No medical attention. A sip of water, perhaps a bite of food. Soldiers enter and leave. Some insult him, some strike him, others simply stare in disbelief. On the morning of October 9th, Colonel Joaquin Centeno and Felix Rodriguez, a Cuban-American CIA agent, arrive. Rodriguez reviews his diary, questions him about his mission, and pulls at his beard. Che looks at him with contempt and calls him a traitor. They speak of politics, of Cuba, of U.S. intervention. It is a strange dialogue, a mix of mutual respect and absolute hostility. Rodriguez knows Che has only hours left. Guevara senses it.
Se veía un hombre que estaba totalmente moralmente destruido. Había momentos que yo estaba hablando con él y no prestaba atención a lo que me estaba diciendo, porque yo me recordaba las imágenes que conocía de él, porque nunca lo conocí personalmente, cuando estaba yendo a Moscú, cuando estaba yendo a Pekín, con aquellos abrigos grandes, y ver aquel personaje que parecía un pordiosero, parecía un limosnero, con las ropas raídas, sucia, el pelo andrajoso, no tenía ni siquiera botas, tenía unos pedazos de cuero amarrados en los pies, y era un contraste tan enorme que impactaba realmente, y lo que me dio fue pena como ser humano.
While the prisoner waits, hundreds of kilometers away, his fate is decided. In La Paz, President René Barrientos and the military high command debate options. A trial would be a political disaster, turning Che into a martyr and drawing global attention. Keeping him alive would mean permanent risk, rescue attempts, international pressure, instability. Releasing him is unthinkable. There's only one alternative. He must die. The order is transmitted in code. 500, 700. Immediate execution. The United States had hinted it preferred him alive, but does not object when the decision is left to Bolivia.
Todos nosotros hubiésemos querido que él hubiera tenido que afrontar un proceso legal con realmente jueces imparciales y afrontar todos los asesinatos cometidos en Cuba.
In La Higuera, officers hesitate. Some doubt, others refuse. Finally, Sergeant Mario Terán is chosen to carry out the sentence. Around noon on October 9th, the end begins. Mario Terán enters the classroom. He is nervous, trembling. Che fixes his gaze on him. Aim well. You're going to kill a man. Terán avoids his eyes. He fires a first burst into legs and abdomen. Che falls, writhing, struggling to breathe. The second burst tears through arm, shoulder, and chest. Then comes a final shot, straight to the heart. Outside, soldiers hear the gunfire and fall silent.
He went into the schoolhouse, alone, with a single order: His bullets should not damage the face. The official version should be wounds received during combat. A few seconds later, Ernesto Guevara de la Serna was dead.
Minutes later, Bolivian authorities released the official version. Che died heroically in combat. The death is meant to be controlled. What they do not realize is that they are about to feed a myth. The body is tied to the landing skids of a helicopter and flown to Valle Grande. In the hospital laundry room, nurses wash his face and lay him on a concrete sink. His eyes remain open from the wind of the flight. Photographers capture the image that will circle the globe. A fallen guerrilla, a complex symbol for friend and foe alike. The display is deliberate. It proves the triumph of the state and the defeat of the myth. That same night, a military doctor cuts off his hands to take fingerprints and send them to Buenos Aires as proof. The mutilation is secret, but it will later surface in documents.
Pido la llave y entro y había un
I took the key and went into the school.
matadero con mucha sangre.
There was a terrible smell and blood everywhere.
Cabello.
There were bits of flesh and hair and shell cases with blood, lots of blood.
Charcos de sangre, mucha
The
sangre
floor
en el
was
suelo,
covered with
caliente,
flies. It stank.
caliente. Y eso provocó en mí una
I just felt disgusted and I said to myself, the world has to know
de que fue
that he was assassinated in such a horrible manner.
The body, now without hands, is buried clandestinely with other guerrillas. For decades, the Bolivian government claims he was cremated, fueling a mystery that only strengthens the legend. In the late 1990s, an Argentine forensic team locates a mass grave with several skeletons. One of them, without hands, matches Che. His remains are transferred to Cuba and buried with honors in the mausoleum of Santa Clara. His tomb becomes a pilgrimage site, and his image transforms into a global symbol far beyond the guerrilla defeated in Bolivia. The last days of Che Guevara encapsulate a chain of strategic errors, flawed political readings, and cold decisions taken far from the dust of the mountains. The man who sought to ignite a continental revolution ended surrounded, hungry, beaten, and executed in a remote schoolhouse, his body displayed as a trophy, then hidden. Yet the attempt to erase him achieved the opposite. They elevated Che to the status of myth. He died defeated, but his image survived, transformed into a symbol that outlived the history meant to bury it. Thus, we reach the end. If you enjoyed this video, we invite you to join us in our next installment.